So after a very long time of not wanting to match up against Colby Covington, Dustin Poirier has finally caved in, and he called out Colby Covington on Twitter just now and said that he wants to fight him on that July 30th card, on the pay-per-view card of UFC 277, and he came out on Twitter previously and said, basically, y'all a bunch of felines, because I don't want to get demonetized immediately into this video, 155 or 170, anyone pull up on July 30th, international call out, get a deal done, with a bunch of frustrated emojis. I'm imagining that Dustin Poirier just really wants to fight again and make some money because he's on an amazing contract, so he just wants to get in there against anyone at the moment, and a bunch of people were replying to him saying stuff like, well, not Colby Covington it seems, you won't say this if Colby Covington accepts the fight. People on MMA Island's comment section were saying stuff like, bet he deletes this if Colby replies, fight Colby, accept Colby Covington, Colby where you at, and stuff like that. And then we move on to his recent call out of Colby Covington, where he said, Colby Covington MMA added him on Twitter, July 30th, I accept. He is so desperate to fight anyone that he has finally accepted that he wants to fight Colby Covington. Let's talk about this situation because there's many moving pieces here. In my opinion, first of all, does this fight make absolute sense? No. But if we're doing Khamzat Chimaev versus Nate Diaz, which it seems like they're trying to do next, then all of a sudden things do make sense, because I know what I would rather have between Colby Covington versus Belal Muhammad and Colby Covington versus Dustin Poirier. I'd much rather have that Covington versus Poirier matchup. However, is there more to this call out than meets the eye? Is this really Dustin Poirier wanting the matchup against Colby Covington? Because in my opinion, if Dustin Poirier is paying any attention to pay-per-view cards being made, he will know for a fact he can't get on the July 30th pay-per-view card. It's finished and done. I just made a card builder for UFC 278 in August. I put Usman Edwards 2 on there. I made a whole video about it. If you want to go on my channel and check it out, it's there right now. And that card's completely open. So maybe he could get a matchup against Colby Covington in August, but you can't get on the July 30th card, and if you're paying attention to the sports, you would know that, and your manager would know that. The July 30th card is done. It's done. It's got Luke Rockhold versus Paulo Costa on the main card opener. Anthony Smith versus Magomed Ankalaev is on the card. Derek Lewis versus Sergey Pavlovich. Nunes versus Pena 2. And Brandon Moreno versus Kai Kara France 2. That's a full main card of a pay-per-view. And I really don't think that they're going to be putting Derek Lewis on the prelims, or Anthony Smith Ankalaev on the prelims, or Paulo Costa versus Luke Rockhold on the prelims either. Now, maybe they could like say, hey, Moreno Kai Kara France, we're going to shimmy you over to another pay-per-view card, or hey, Nunes Pena, we're going to move you over to another pay-per-view card to make way for Covington versus Poirier, because it's so much of a bigger matchup, or hey, Derek Lewis Pavlovich, you're going to main event a fight night coming up the weekend afterwards. But they are in Texas for that pay-per-view card, because Luke Rockhold released it was in Dallas, so they kind of want Derek Lewis on there. Maybe they could shimmy some fights around, but in my opinion, Poirier knows the card is full, his management knows the card is full, and Poirier also knows that Covington is going through some real legal stuff right now that might take a little while. Now, maybe in August, this would be perfect, but I truly kind of believe to myself that Poirier is just saying this because he kind of thinks that Colby won't be able to fight on July 30th. Now, I would really love Covington to immediately reply to this and say, hey, I'm ready July 30th, let's make it happen, then I'm calling your bluff, let's make this fight happen right now. But I can also see Colby saying, listen, I just had my tooth fucking put right back into my gum by Jorge Masvidal. I got rocked a couple of weekends ago by Jorge Masvidal. I'm going through a bunch of legal issues right now. I will be going through a bunch of legal issues throughout our fight camp if we have one, with your teammate still, by the way, Jorge Masvidal. So if I'm Dustin Poirier, I'm saying, hey, I signed a fight with Covington. Masvidal, stretch out this legal thing as long as you possibly can into his fight camp to try and mess with him, or something along those lines, because I do believe he knows Covington ain't going to be ready by July 30th. Call him out for August. The card is full. He's got legal issues. I want August, Covington versus Poirier. Mucho gracias. Mucho bien. I think it'd be amazing. That'd be an amazing matchup. I'm really looking forward to it if it does happen. If it does happen, Covington's going to win. And Poirier, it kind of kills the buzz of it now, because Poirier accepted that. If there's an interview out there on the Mac Life where Poirier literally said, I don't want to fight that guy. I don't want to fight that guy in the cage at all. You know, I'll fight him on the streets, but I'm not going to let him make money off my name. That's like killed the hype for it a little bit, but I know the hype would still be there because the bad blood is going to be building up and there's going to be a massive press conference where Covington is just calling him a cuck for like 50 minutes on end, hopefully. That would be an ideal press conference, in all honesty. We haven't had a good press conference for a very long time, so I'd really enjoy it if Covington versus Poirier could be a big press conference with a bunch of trash talk going on, with a bunch of other good fights on that August pay-per-view card as well. Let's see it happen. Let's make it happen. Covington versus Poirier. I'd much prefer that matchup compared to the Bilal Muhammad one, and I do believe that Colby Covington would win that fight. I think he'll go out there, mess around on the feet for a little bit, take down Dustin Poirier, and do that back control game that he did against Jorge Masvidal, but to a smaller guy in Dustin Poirier, and yeah, destroy him. I know Poirier's a little bit bigger than Covington, but so is every opponent that Covington takes on. I think he would just ragdoll Poirier against a cage, and Poirier has a habit of giving up his neck against a cage constantly, and there's no way he's going to be in the prime of his career right now because he's had the big money fight against McGregor. He's had his attempts at a title shot. This, in my opinion, is just fighting to fight and get paid on your big pay contract that you've just signed with the UFC. And Covington's in there looking to get right back towards the title shot because he feels like he should have beaten Usman, but I feel like it was a draw. It was a draw between him and Usman in that rematch. So I think Covington's got a better cause to fight. He wants to fight to work his way back towards a title shot. He knows he can beat Dustin Poirier. Listen, someone needs to make a video. And maybe it'll be me in the build-up of his next fight, called the Colby Covington game plan of a career. He went to ATT. He trained there for like a decade, okay? As they're wrestling sparring. And he learned the other parts of MMA along the way as well. And since that moment, all of the call-outs he has had have been against ATT fighters. He was hell-bent on fighting Woodley for a very long time. Woodley, me versus Woodley, I'll fight him after I beat Maya. I'll fight him after I beat RDA. And it never ended up happening because he had a sinus infection. And Woodley went first by taking the Darren Till fight, even though Till missed weight, for a card that was like right after Covington's fight was over, after he went 5 rounds against RDA. He then called out Lawler. He didn't call him out. He took the Lawler fight on like 2 weeks' notice. 2 weeks' notice, had a cut over his eye. He fought Robbie Lawler in, I believe, UFC Washington, D.C. or something like that, and beat him over the 5 rounds, out-grappling him, out-striking him. Then he called out Jorge Masvidal. Now he's calling out Dustin Poirier. I truly believe Covington went to ATT, sparred with all of these people, and ragdolled the life out of all of them, and beat all of them up. And he was like team captain at ATT for a while. There's videos online of Covington calling himself the team captain of ATT with other ATT members near him. And people aren't saying, no, you're not. You know what I mean? He considered himself team captain of ATT. That tells me that he considered himself the clear best fighter in that room so far, and by far. And that's what his career plan has been from then on out. He's wanted all of the people that he knows he can out-grapple, and knows that he can out-grind, and knows that he can out-hustle against a cage, and now he wants Dustin Poirier, and Poirier refused it for so long, and now that no one else wants to fight Poirier, and there's no matchups happening because Chandler for some reason doesn't want to fight him. There's a bunch of stuff going on at lightweight. People want to fight for the belt. They don't really want to fight Dustin Poirier. Conor McGregor's not really like hoping for the idea of a quadrilogy with Poirier, and Poirier doesn't really want the quadrilogy with McGregor. Nate Diaz and Poirier fighters kind of fizzled out as well. So if he's going to move to 170, why not take on the number 1 guy in the world, Colby Covington, outside of the champion Kamaru Usman, and maybe even earn yourself a title shot there, or at least put yourself one fight away from a title shot in the welterweight division. I don't think Poirier wins. I don't think he's got the power on the feet to put Colby down. Masvidal, in my opinion, has more pound-for-pound power than Dustin Poirier. I think a lot of people that Covington has taken shots from, like Woodley, hit a little bit harder than Dustin Poirier. Poirier's more of a volume guy. Sure, he does have some snap in his shots, and maybe would be winging in more powerful shots against Covington if they were to take on each other. But I really don't see Dustin Poirier being able to KO Colby Covington. I don't see him being able to swarm him against the cage because Covington has that option to blast a double leg to alleviate some pressure for himself if it ever does get into that moment. And I really do believe Covington would smack him around on the feet for a little bit. Both guys would land a couple of shots back and forth. And Covington would just ragdoll him against the cage, take him down over and over again, and eventually rear naked choke him in round 3. That's my prediction. A round 3 rear naked choke for Colby Covington. Poirier gives up his neck so much against the cage when he's trying to get back up to his feet. He was on the ground with Oliveira and decided to body triangle himself on bottom because he knew if he tried to get back up, he would end up giving up his back against Oliveira and being choked out. In the 3rd round, he didn't even get taken down by Oliveira, but Oliveira was still able to get his back and choke him out because Poirier does give up his back so much. And you watch what Covington did against Masvidal. I predicted Covington to get a rear naked choke finish against Masvidal. I picked him to get a rear naked choke finish against Woodley as well, I believe, because that's what he does. When he gets people down and they start to get tired, he goes for the back. He starts cranking on their face. He was doing this to Lawler, a whole bunch in their fight as well, and they're all tucking their chins and trying to fight it off because they're a bit bigger, a bit stronger. Maybe Dustin Poirier thinks he can pack on a bit of muscle and beat up Colby like he couldn't do when he was draining down to 155 while they were sparring each other. But I truly believe Poirier's cardio is going to be worse. After grappling, it's going to be especially worse. And I think Masvidal's got better takedown defense than him. So I see Covington ragdolling Poirier, choking him out in the 3rd, and moving on with his career. Hopefully to take on a Chimaev after beating Diaz. I don't know what Belal Muhammad's going to do. I guess fight Sean Brady, which is tough to be Belal Muhammad right now. Maybe if Edwards loses to Usman, they can do Muhammad versus Edwards too. Something along those lines. It sucks to be Belal Muhammad, I know, but then again, it sucks to be a fan whilst Belal Muhammad is fighting, so that's also a factor. So yeah, Covington, Poirier, great matchup, make it happen. We need pay-per-view sales. They released the numbers 400k. Last year, they would not release those numbers. If a pay-per-view sold 400k last year, the numbers wouldn't be released. I think Covington versus Masvidal did somewhere near just under 500,000 and wasn't as big of a pay-per-view selling card as they thought it would be. I also believe that Adesanya is starting to lose a lot of stock after his performances, which is why they have overstacked the UFC 276 pay-per-view card so much, and we've suffered with bad fight nights here and there because of it, because they've put all of their value into that UFC 276 pay-per-view card to justify them paying Adesanya that much money. Adesanya's title fight in July might be the least interesting fight on that card, in all honesty. The least hyped matchup on that card. It's a big matchup, don't get me wrong, but the rest of the card is what brings interest to that. And that's what they've been doing with Adesanya's card. They put Nate Diaz on his 263 one. That sold quite well. When he fought Blachowicz, it was a big matchup first of all, and it did sell a lot of pay-per-views. But the card underneath was one of the best cards we've ever seen, you know what I mean? So they're overstacking Adesanya cards. They're losing a lot of pay-per-view sales. They're not selling pay-per-views anymore. ESPN pays them for 500k. 500k pay-per-views. That's what it pays them. Because it expects at some points for the UFC to oversell that 500k margin and them to get their money back. That was their gamble. We'll pay you 500k and we expect you to sell more than that by being a part of ESPN and we'll get our money back because of it. That was their gamble as a business. And they aren't selling over 500k and they have not done it this year so far. They released the numbers of 400k. They would not release that in the past. They would keep that silent like they kept the Adesanya-Whittaker 2 numbers silent and even kept the Covington-Masvidal numbers silent. So if they want big matchups, they got to get trash talking at press conferences. Covington versus Poirier. Make it happen. A big matchup in the welterweight division. Yeah, Poirier finally broke. But I do kind of believe that he kind of knows that Covington can't fight on July 30th and he can't fight on July 30th. So he needs to drop that July 30th talk and start talking about August instead, because August needs some good fights on that card, and I'd much rather have that on the card than Sean Brady versus Belal Muhammad. So that can be switched out, and we'll put Poirier Covington on there. Honestly, in a 3-rounder, I don't mind Poirier's chances. However, there's an ABC card coming up in August. And we now know they don't want to do Chimaev versus Covington. Covington-Poirier, ABC main event, early August. Sign me up. I know Covington would prefer 5 rounds if he was to take on Poirier. Like and subscribe. Thank you for watching. Click that button up there. Toodle pip. I'll see you later. Goodbye.